Right, welcome back. I hope that you enjoyed your break, and I hope that you all were able to share with Agnes and now understand about the pizza oven. At the moment, I don't have another caller, so I'm going to go through a prepared question, but if you call me, then I can help you too, like I did Agnes, on 086 1058 262. Come on, guys, phone in now. Right, in the meantime, we're going to go through question 3 in the KwaZulu-Natal paper from September, their prelims, the September of this year. Right, I'm going to read through all the information, and then we're going to start with analysing the questions. So, I have Peter and his 3 friends. Well, firstly, that's probably an important fact for me to know, that Peter had 3 friends, and he lived in Newcastle. They were planning a trip to their graduation function in Port Elizabeth. They have decided between 4 different travel options. They can go on an aeroplane via Joburg, an aeroplane via Durban, a bus via Bloemfontein, or they can hire a car. To catch an aeroplane, they have to use a car to the Oliver Tambo or the Durban International Airport. The graph below shows the cost and the duration of each single trip. Now, somehow that's been highlighted. I'm sure it's an important fact, per person. So it's a single trip per person. If we're going from Newcastle to Port Elizabeth, a single trip means going there. But we are going to have to probably do calculations of getting back home, because it's no good to just go to the graduation. They need to actually arrive back in Newcastle. So that's why single trip is important. This graph that they've given us, well, let's analyze the graph. We've got the 4 different modes of transport going down this column, and then we've got a time kind of schedule. So the yellow line, that's a bus, cost of 650 Rand. Remember, that was a single trip per person. Car rental, that's if they hire a sports car, and you've got your price. Car and aeroplane from Joburg, car and aeroplane from Durban. And then I want to look at our times. So if we go on the bus, they're leaving at 5:45 in the morning. They are traveling the entire day and get to PE at 11:15 at night. If they rent a car, which is going to cost them 550 Rand per day and 1.40 Rand per kilometre, they leave a little bit later, they travel the whole day, and they get there a little bit earlier. Not much, but they're pretty much traveling the whole day. We've got our car and our plane from Joburg. The 200 Rand is probably for the car. The 1380 is for the plane. They leave at 9:30. They travel a short time, and then they're going to be resting somewhere, and then they arrive at 14:58. And the same thing occurs with Durban. We leave a little bit later going from Durban, and they arrive a little bit later. Right, let's go through and see what the first question says. How much will a return trip cost them if they travel by bus? Now, them has been highlighted. We need to find out the cost of a return trip for all 4 of them. Remember, Peter had 3 friends. So we're going to work out for all of them, and that's why it's been highlighted. So, firstly, let's see how much a bus costs for one person. Well, we know it is 650 Rand for a single trip for one person. But we need a return trip. So we're going to multiply by 2. So it will cost us the same going there and back. And then there are 4 of them. Well, let's do that calculation first. So I've got 650 Rand times 2 is 1,300 Rand. So it's costing them 1,300 Rand each for a return trip. And now there are 4 of them. So we're going to take that and times it by 4. Get a calculator to do that. And we see that it costs them 5,200 Rand for all of them. Now let's write that in as our answer, 5,200 Rand. Fairly simple way to start this question. Please don't forget to add your units. It's Rand, so you must have your Rand sign. Right, let's see what the next part of the question says. Right, we've got our same information. How long will a single trip by bus take? So we're looking at a single trip by bus. And how long will that take? Well, Sorry, get some water. We're going to go back to our bus trip. They arrive at 11:15 and they left at 6:15. Now you can sit and you can calculate this using your fingers and say, well, let's go 6 to 7 to 8 to 9. But I want to show you a quicker way using your calculator. On your calculator, we have this wonderful little button, actually for degrees, but we can use it for time. So what we're going to do before we go to our calculator is I'm going to tell you that I need to work out the time from 23 hours 15, and I'm going to minus the time that I left. That's basically what I'm looking at, the time that they were traveling. So on my calculator, I'm going to say, well, I've got 23 hours and 15 minutes minus 5 hours and 45 minutes. And I'm going to get an answer of 17 hours and 30 minutes. That is how long they actually traveled for that day. So we can write that in here. Their trip was 17 hours and 30 minutes. If you're using this button on your calculator, I want you to just be careful if you have to go over 24 hours. Then split your calculation to work out one number to up to midnight, and then do another calculation for past midnight. So kind of make your midnight, or your midnight, that's your 24 hours, or your 0 in the morning, make that as your cutoff line. And I want you to do 2 calculations. I think we get to do one later, so I'll explain. Let's see what the next part of the question says. Explain why the graph of the aeroplanes are broken line graphs. Well, remember when I was telling you about the graphs, I said, well, the graphs are actually showing the journey. So their bus, they left at a certain time and they were on the road the entire time until they got to Port Elizabeth. With our planes, they had a short journey. There was a time where they were basically resting, and then they had another journey. So let's go through to our question again and see what happened when they caught a bus. To catch an aeroplane, they had to use a car to the Oliver Tambo or the Durban International Airport. And then they caught a plane. So we actually have 2 things occurring in this graph. The first line is the car travel, and the second one is the aeroplane. So that is why there is a gap in the graph. There is a period of time, and we can actually write this in here. So the first part is the car. The second part is the plane. And where there is nothing filled in on the graph, they are actually, so let's put that in between, we are actually resting and they are waiting for the plane. They are waiting kind of at the airport for the plane. I want you, when you do something like this where you have to give your explanation, look out for the mark allocation. It doesn't have to be overly emphasized. As long as your examiner can understand your train of thought, they can allocate marks to you. But don't go on and write 3 pages explaining 2-mark essay. A 2-mark question. Let's see what the next part of the question is. Peter and his friends are considering an option of renting a car. They will travel via Bloemfontein, which is 506 kilometers from Newcastle. Remember, they were leaving from Newcastle, and they were going from Newcastle through to Port Elizabeth. So they're going via Bloemfontein, and we know that's 506 kilometers. They then go Bloemfontein to Port Elizabeth is 685 kilometers. They're going to leave a day before the graduation. The graduation starts at 9 o'clock in the morning, and they're going to return immediately after graduation. First of all, let's just check, why are they leaving a day before? They need to be there at 9 o'clock in the morning, and they're basically spending most of the day traveling. So they're going to leave the day before. What they want us to calculate is the minimum number of days they could hire the car for. And they want us to show all our calculations. So let's try and calculate the minimum number of days. First of all, I want to know how long are they actually in the car for. And that's an important fact. So we know we're traveling most of the day. So let's work out our time. How long does it take us to get from one point to the next? So they leave at 9:10 and they get to Port Elizabeth at 22:28. So, and that was up until, not minus. So I'm going to use my calculator and see the time. So I'm going to take my 22 hours 28 minus 9 hours 10 to see how long this calculates. I'm going to use that button again. 22 hours and 28 minutes minus 9 hours and 10 minutes. And I see that I'm traveling for 13 hours and 18 minutes. So that's how long they're going to travel for. They're going to travel for 13 hours and 18 minutes. Now, this tells us in the text that they're going to leave immediately after graduation. The little thing that we're missing, the little fact that we're missing from this question is we don't know how long graduation is. I want you to all take a deep breath and don't let that fact throw you. First of all, if you find yourself in a situation where there's a question where you don't seem to have enough information, what I want you to do is I want you to make an assumption. So we can assume that graduation will be 3 hours or 4 hours or 7 hours. Make an assumption of how long graduation is. But tell the examiner exactly what you're assuming so that we can allocate the marks thereafter. What I'm going to do is I'm going to see, well, what is the latest time that they can leave if we want to hire the car for the shortest period. Now, if I'm going to go with the shortest period was the day before, then they had graduation, and then I'm saying, well, okay, if they can leave after graduation and return the car the next day, but I'd like to return it before 9:10 in the morning. So return it 9:10 in the morning on the third day. But that gives me a total of 2 days. That's what I want to look at. I want to look at saying they're going to hire the car for 2 days. So we need to see what time they need to leave Port Elizabeth to get back to Newcastle. So we're going to say, well, it's 9:10 in the morning, but I need to travel. They're going to be traveling for 13 hours and 18 minutes. So let's calculate going backwards. And remember earlier I said to you, let's worry about this 24 hours. So I'm going to do this as 2 calculations. So I'm going to basically start with 9:10 to midnight. Or from midnight, should we say. So let's do it this side. We've got 24 hours to 9:10, and then we've got our balance before midnight. So I need to also work out what that balance is. So I'm first going to say, well, okay, I've got 13 hours and 18 minutes minus 9 hours 10, because from midnight, well, let's make that 0. Here I've got 9 hours 10. So I'm going to minus 9 hours 10 from that. And let's do that on the calculator. So I've got 13 hours and 18 minutes minus 9 hours and 10 minutes. And I get an answer of 4 hours and 8 minutes. So, and back to that, I need 4 hours and 8 minutes before midnight is when they need to leave. And now I can do this calculation on my calculator and say, well, 24 hours minus 4 hours and 8 minutes. Let's do that on the calculator. So I'm taking 24 hours and 0 minutes minus 4 hours and 8 minutes, and I get an answer of 1952. So that is nearly 10 to 8. So 1952. So what have I calculated? I've totally ignored the length of the ceremony, of the graduation. But I have basically said that if they leave before 10 to 8 at night, they will get back to Newcastle in time to hand in the car on day number 3, which means they will only be charged for 2 days. So my minimum is 2 days if they leave before 1952. Everybody happy with that question? Right, I think at this point, I think we should take a quick break, and then we'll move on to the next part of the question. But please give me a call. I'd love to hear from you. It's 086 10 58 262.